In this video, I'll be going over Lightspeed as a company and the recent quarterly earnings, as well as what are my thoughts for Lightspeed going forward from here. We're revisiting Lightspeed now because Lightspeed just reported amazing earnings, which actually shot the stock up by about 16% in one day. So I wanted to make this update video for those of you guys who are interested in Lightspeed stock. And if you want to know a bit more about Lightspeed, you can watch my previous analysis, which I will have linked at the end of this video here. Or also you can click on this card up here to save that video for later on. Anyways, let's talk about Lightspeed. What's going on, you guys? My name is Danielle, and here on this channel, we talk about Canadian stock market investing with a focus in high growth tech stocks. If you want to join the community here, subscribe and hit that notification bell, as well as if you're already a returning subscriber, please consider leaving a like down below before we get into this video so that you don't forget. Also, one last announcement is that I have a spreadsheet now. This is a brand new spreadsheet that I started, which you can find in the description for all the stock ideas that you guys have, because I've noticed there's many companies that have come up in the comments, but it's very hard for me to track. So this spreadsheet is for those of you guys who want to make sure that your stock suggestions aren't lost, and periodically I'll be looking at the spreadsheet, probably making my own comments about the stock on there, so look out for that as well. And if I do find a company worth my time in investing or just talking about, I'll make a video on it. Otherwise, I can leave my thoughts on that spreadsheet for those of you guys who are just interested for a quick tidbit. Anyways, that's enough preamble. Let's get right to Lightspeed. So first off, we're going to go over some of the major numbers that Lightspeed reported in this past quarter. The first thing we want to note is that they have 80,000 customer locations now, and this is up from 76,500, which was last quarter. This represents a 4.6% growth quarter over quarter, or 40% growth year over year. They also reported $45.5 million of revenue, which is a growth of 62% year over year. 90% of the revenue was actually from subscription revenue. So this is around $41 million was recurring revenue within this quarter. Their GTV, or gross transaction volume, went up by 56%, all the way to $8.5 billion. So this is essentially how much money was flowing through Lightspeed's system within the quarter. And the last thing that I want to point out is that their gross profits were $27.5 million, which increased 60% year over year. Now that I threw a bunch of numbers at you guys, let me explain them to dissect what they actually mean for Lightspeed's business. So first off, the revenues, we see that they grew faster than their gross transaction volume. And this shows us as investors that Lightspeed's able to upsell their customers on extra features that help streamline their business processes. And customers are happy to pay Lightspeed that extra money as they're getting value from that. The second thing that we should know is that gross transaction volume is growing faster than their customer acquisition. And what this means for Lightspeed is that they're capturing higher value customers, or each and every customer that they have is growing their business and capturing more dollars from the market. Either way it's going, it shows that Lightspeed's business is actually providing customers value. It's kind of better for the latter if Lightspeed is seeing their customers grow, because then that's a testament that Lightspeed is helping those customers grow and they're willing to continue signing on with Lightspeed as a platform and using their software. If it's a former where Lightspeed is capturing larger customers, this also isn't a bad thing because it shows that Lightspeed is able to go and capture larger customers instead of the small, just mom and pop shops. And this is important for Lightspeed as a business because when you capture larger value customers, then your sales operation becomes a little bit more efficient. Because for each and every deal, you have to send at least one or a team of salespeople. And if you're sending it out to the small little mom and pop shops, those customer values are quite small. So ideally, from Lightspeed's standpoint as a business, they want to capture the higher value customers, which are those larger clients with multi-million dollars of revenue each year, so that it doesn't waste their sales team's time. And each and every sale becomes more profitable. So we interrupt this video right now so that you guys can smash the like button. Thanks, let's get back to it. The next thing that I want to talk about is just looking at Lightspeed as a business and how they did during the pandemic. And originally when Lightspeed was going through this pandemic in March and April, we saw investors sell this stock off heavily. And the reason for that is because Lightspeed's customers are mainly retail, restaurants, and they also have golf courses now. And these are predominantly closed, or they only had options to pick up items from the front door. So Lightspeed's customers really got affected pretty heavily at the beginning, and therefore Lightspeed also got affected as well. If those small businesses closed down, then that would ultimately affect the bottom line of Lightspeed, which is why investors sold it off and the stock dropped about 66%. but it's had a decent recovery. It wasn't as good as other tech stocks out there, and I think it's still because they're servicing mainly retail and restaurant spaces, which investors are still worried about because we see a second wave coming. For that reason, Lightspeed only just passed the previous all-time highs on their Q2 2021 earnings report. One thing as a testament towards Lightspeed's resilience in this pandemic is that they continue to grow their business despite being in a pandemic and having all their customers being affected by this. They were able to continue increasing customer locations and even continue to improve their revenue year over year. And this is quite different from the general finance company or restaurant company or retail company, where they saw their revenues cut by quite a bit. And I think the reason why Lightspeed was still able to succeed during this pandemic and not be hit too hard is because they provided values to their customers. And their potential customers who were looking at Lightspeed before saw the value and probably jumped in on Lightspeed's platform because they needed it to survive. And the reason why they needed it to survive is that a lot of these, small and medium businesses didn't have the infrastructure to build out their own web services and have their own website, but Lightspeed provides that for them. Lightspeed provides them a cloud platform where they can start selling their products instantly online. And it's geared towards the retail and restaurant space, so they have different features towards both these industries. For the retail customers, Lightspeed allowed their customers to have curbside pickup, which is quite new. They also allow them to build up an e-commerce website. And it's similar to, Shopify and Square as well, but I think the fact that Lightspeed tackled retail, and retailers realize the benefit of going with Lightspeed is that they also support brick and mortar and e-commerce. This allows them to jump on Lightspeed right away, integrated in both their retail locations as well as online. One other feature that Lightspeed launched for the retail customers that was quite interesting is this whole idea of a subscription. So a lot of these retailers, maybe like clothing retailers, put out some sort of subscription box where customers could buy clothing from them, sort of like Stitch Fix, I think is a company, where you're sent a monthly box, you try on the clothes and only keep what you want and send back the rest, and you're charged for whatever you keep. That's probably one idea of a subscription that a lot of retailers are using on Lightspeed's platform. For the restaurant space, Lightspeed provided customers curbside pickup as well. They also provided them order in advance. So this allowed restaurants to know the amount of demand that they had for their food during that day, as well as gave them some sort of analytics going forward, realizing what was their demand like on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And that way it allows them to order in advance the raw ingredients and not have anything go to waste. Because I think that's one of the biggest problems with the restaurant industry. You don't really know how many customers are going to show up, and a lot of these smaller restaurants don't have that ability to have integrated analytics onto their platform. So Lightspeed provides that to these smaller restaurants, allowing them to have the power of analytics and data collection to adjust the amount of raw ingredients they order, as well as the amount of help they need in terms of hiring. Another major announcement that just came out from Lightspeed is that they're acquiring a company called Shopkeep. And Shopkeep is another fairly major player in the States which does point-of-sale systems. According to Google, Shopkeep has about 23,000 small businesses on their platform. So it's very clear that Shopkeep and Lightspeed have a good synergy here if they were to merge. And the deal went through for $440 million, partially cash and partially stock. And this cash is actually coming from Lightspeed's IPO on the New York Stock Exchange, which happened just a couple months ago. So you can see that Lightspeed's using that capital they raised and already deploying that in purchasing this major company, Shopkeep. And what this means for Lightspeed as a company going forward is that based on Shopkeep's numbers, the combined total number of store locations that Lightspeed and Shopkeep will have together is greater than 100,000. On top of that, the total gross transaction volume is $33 billion. And we'll talk about this number a little bit later because it's quite important. One last thing about this deal is that it's closing by the end of this year. So we probably won't see Shopkeep's numbers in Lightspeed's next quarter, but the quarter after that in Q4 2021, that's when we should see Shopkeep's revenues, gross transaction volume, and everything else be reported in Lightspeed's earnings. Looking forward for Lightspeed's business, there's one interesting thing that I picked up from the earnings report, and this is Lightspeed's payments. Lightspeed recently introduced a payment platform similar to Shopify Pay, where customers on the Lightspeed platform can process their payments through Lightspeed instead of using something like PayPal or a third-party vendor. So this allows Lightspeed to capture even more revenue from each customer because now the payments are being processed through Lightspeed themselves, and they're going to be able to take a cut of that. And typically when you're using the company's actual payments platform, it's going to be cheaper than something like a third party like PayPal. So I expect a higher adoption of Lightspeed payments going forwards. And if we look at Shopify actually, we can see that they have about a 45% adoption of Shop Pay right now. And if we translate that over onto Lightspeed and say that they get 45% of their customers on Lightspeed Pay, then we can see that for one single quarter, $8.5 billion, Lightspeed will be able to capture about $72 million. This is based on capturing a 2% fee for all payments that go through the system at 45% of the $8.5 billion of gross transaction volume. If we scale that out to $33 billion with the gross transaction volume from ShopKeep, then we can see over the previous year, if Lightspeed had a 45% penetration of Lightspeed payments, they would be taking in roughly around $280 million in revenue. So if we look at that number and compare that to the revenue right now, Lightspeed's revenue per quarter is about $45.5 million. If they captured 45% of the customers in Lightspeed payments, that would bump it up by about $72 million. Probably a little less than that because they already have some customers on Lightspeed payments. But we could probably take a guesstimate saying that's about $60 million. So Lightspeed's revenue per quarter could potentially go up to around $105 million per quarter, putting their total year's revenue at $420 million. And based on the current market cap of $4.6 billion in USD, and note that Lightspeed reports all the revenue in USD, that's why I'm using the USD market cap, that means their PS ratio is around 10. At least this is a future PS ratio if they're able to accelerate the adoption of Lightspeed payments. So that's kind of the bullish case for Lightspeed going forward. As they have more and more customers come into Lightspeed payments, we should see their revenues continue to accelerate. So for me personally right now, I hold about 45 shares of Lightspeed and I bought in with an average cost basis of $30. And how I view Lightspeed stock right now in my position, I think I'm fairly comfortable with it. I don't plan to add right now at these $50 levels because Lightspeed already makes up a fairly large portion of my portfolio, roughly 10% actually. So I don't want to have Lightspeed too heavy right now because ultimately this company is still not profitable on a per quarter basis and really they're in the growth phase. And the fact that they're still serving brick and mortar customers as their primary customers keeps me a little bit uneasy because the whole retail shift is moving towards online and it's hard to say what will happen to brick and mortar in terms of who will be the winners and if Lightspeed has captured those winners out there. So for that reason, I'm keeping my Lightspeed position where it is. I think that Lightspeed could possibly continue breaking out based on these quarters, but that's just a pure guess on my part. The bullish case for Lightspeed, if I didn't have a position and was looking to enter into one, is the fact that Lightspeed just crossed its previous resistance line. And this resistance line was at around $50. Lightspeed crossed over into the $52 level, and we may see them going up from here. The fact that they're a software company and have been trading sideways for quite a while is a little astonishing for a Canadian growth stock. So I think that investors might look into Lightspeed now, the fact that they're breaking out, and maybe the algorithms or the big money out there is going to see this opportunity, seize the opportunity and buy up Lightspeed stock as it's finally breaking out. So that's my update for Lightspeed, but if you want to know a bit more about Lightspeed, check out this video right here as it was my first analysis of Lightspeed, which goes a bit more in depth about the business. If you want to know 9 stocks that I'm watching for the month of November, check out this video right here. If you're there, I'll see you over there, but if you're not, keep up the grind and have a great day.